All right. Pretty good stuff there, guys.
Love it. That was a
Love it. We have
wild show.
Benjy Eisen with us, and I'm going to use that as my segue right into our spiel. Benjy will be back again tomorrow night with us by popular demand. And tomorrow night we have a special lot before Pine Knob, so you get us twice because Wednesdays are for Wook Plus. And we're going to have Kevin Legall, who is the bass player for a band called Space Bacon. If you haven't heard of them, they're out of Brooklyn, Bronx, something like that. Don't shoot me. We tweeted
Dope
out their
band though.
Bandcamp page. Very good stuff, all instrumental, very interesting. And
And you know
the
who else is
last,
gonna stop by?
who's that?
Andy Gadiel, my buddy, our buddy Andy's gonna
Oh,
stop by. I can't
nice.
wait to talk to him. It's been a little bit, but there's been so much going on with this tour. I don't know how long he'll be hanging out, but he'll be stopping by to
Nice.
talk Phish with us.
Nice. I like to hear that. And tomorrow, 1:00, head over to HF Pod. We partnered with them this summer. They're giving probably a little deeper analysis than the immediate reaction we're doing. They have a few
You
hours
don't
to
know
think
how
about
deep
it.
I'm about to get, Kev.
All
You don't know how deep we're about to get. No, you're right
And
though.
they're joined by Justin Green, who is no Twitter listed, and David Miller, who's at Miller_David. So check them out. And let's start off with another acapella. They did one on a Tuesday at the Man. They did the Beatles tonight. Where are you with that, Benjy?
Well, it was a bust out. It was, over 100 shows. It's been since the Baker's Dozen, so it's the second time ever, and it was the biggest bust out of the show, and for a minute, I believe. I love it. I was after Baker's Dozen. That was one of those. I think after the Baker's Dozen, we all asked ourselves, what of the new covers, which ones do we want to keep hearing? And I feel like that was one of them. And so it took them a hot minute, but they finally delivered.
It's back.
Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think it was super cool to see that. And there was one MSG run where they started every show a cappella, like 2016, 2017, I don't know, like somewhere in the middle of 3.0. And I just love that way of starting off a show. And now I like to see, I mean, I know they've been doing it forever, but like since that one run, it was kind of really hit me. And I'm glad to see that it's still a thing they're doing.
I was reminded today, I looked at an old set list from Penn State, from State College at the Bryce Jordan Center, at a show that I was at in 1.0. And, that I haven't heard for lifetimes. And one of I remember like one or two details of the set list, but for the most part, when I was reading it, it was all news to me. And the Star Spangled Banner debuted that night, 2/3 of the way through the second set. And I was there.
96 show, right? The 96
show.
Yeah,
that's right. Yeah. That's right. And I was there. I was, like within the front few rows. And I didn't remember that. But looking back at it, like, what a weird fucking band. 2/3 of the way through the second set to play the Star Spangled Banner a cappella.
When they did it in Hampton, in Baltimore, we yell "oh" like for the O's.
I hate that, by the way. It's probably the thing I hate most about Maryland, and it's such a unique thing.
So Phish is playing it in Hampton, and I'm like 10 rows back from the stage. I yell "oh," and you hear like 20 other people, different places, all yell "oh" out and ruin it. I guess I got a lot of dirty looks, but that's par for the course.
Was the national anthem still listed for that Bethel show, this recent Bethel show? Because they listed it on .net as like its own song, but it really just was played over fire.
A solo,
like,
right?
Yeah, I don't know if it's still listed like that.
Where is that line? We missed the Shafty conversation, Tim.
I know.
Over the
it's
weekend.
Awesome. That's part about being on tour, not looking at your phone as you missed those.
What we get to talk about is crowd control, which is, it was good. It was a solid version of it. It is what it is. It was
weird not as the opener, but I guess with the acapella, it fits as the first instrumental opener.
Right.
It's cool. Okay, we got to move through some of these early ones though, because we have a really fire.
Oh boy, you're all.
I know. I'm all fire. I'm all amped up.
No,
keep going.
All right, punch you in the eye. I think that I'll just say what I'm going to say, and then you guys throw in what you need. The last time they did it had been 47 shows because Landlady kept coming up. And Trey was trying to read the lyrics. He was a little hesitant. I don't think he nailed it. Tonight, I think he nailed it. Like, he read through the lyrics a few times. He kind of knew what he was going to sing. And I think it was a really solid version. I'm glad to see it back in all its glory.
Yeah, I agree. Well
Yeah,
said.
I mean, there was a time in which Punch just seemed so old hat and so standard that we kind of all just took it for granted, and it wasn't like I wouldn't. Don't get me wrong, I never groaned or rolled my eyes when they played it. I was always stoked, but at the same time, like it was comfortable because it was so regular. And now, because it's so not, it's nice to get a little bit of that like excitement when they go into it. When Trey counts it out, it's like, oh, Punch, cool. Fingers
Well,
crossed.
we were talking about this versus 46 Days earlier, me and Tim, and I've seen a
Right.
bunch more punch you in the eyes than 46 Days, and he was the exact
The exact opposite ratio. And what we determined was the majority of Kev's shows were in the 90s, right? Because he's a bit older than me, and the majority of my shows that were in 3.0. And it's like what you're talking about as the staple, the standard that Punch was. It's kind of what 46 Days was throughout 3.0. Yeah. So now in 4.0, it's kind of cool that they're nailing both of these quote unquote staples still, but they aren't the staple anymore. There's just so much other shit in rotation. It's
46
awesome.
Days is a workhorse. You get.
I mean, I guess that's still
6
maintained
shows.
its same rate. Yeah, it has a lot of plays, but it's great. It always is good.
Yeah.
I did the micro jam thing in it, and then they dropped into. Or you got anything on it, Benji? Where are you at on 46 Days?
I'm good at it. Like I said, I think like Tim just said, it's a workhorse. It is it's unless we're talking like the It version, it's one of those ones where you're hard pressed to find something that one that really stands out, but you're also hard pressed to find a set killer.
I feel like last fall maybe they nailed one.
Yeah. But it always works is the thing, and so therefore that's why it gets the workhorse title. It always works. You can do it first set, you can do it second set. Probably not going to be the highlight, but it's also not going to be a bathroom break.
Right. Exactly.
And it could be the highlight. Yeah. It has potential, right? That's what's exciting about it is when they start it, you might get an 8-minute little, fun jam that's nothing special, but, moves the set along. Or you might get a pretty monster jam out of it, but it
kind of like the monster jam we got out of You Enjoy Myself.
Yeah.
Wow. Middle of the set.
Go ahead love that standard, the new standard now of coming out of the vocal jam. I think that is probably my single favorite development in like the 4.0 saga. I've been watching all this Marvel stuff about like Phase 4 and the saga. So in my mind now, 4.0, like this is the new saga of Phish. And the most interesting chapter. Yeah, post blip. And the most interesting development so far in this saga for me is the jam out of the vocal jam. I think it is brilliant, and I hope they keep doing it.
And I think you can place Yem anywhere all of a sudden because it has that jam out of it. It doesn't have to end a set kind of like it used to do,
Yeah.
And I think the vocal jams from 1.0, especially from before all of our time, like the ones from like 91, 92. There's some there's that like Gunnison, Colorado Yem from 93 that is just really, really cool and interesting and groundbreaking and unique and different, and they're quoting things, and then they kind of just got away from that, and it kind of became I don't know how excited they were to like do the vocal jams towards the end of that, and so now but so am I. But yeah, I think that the jam at the end of it, the reprise jam or whatever it is, rebound jam, is awesome.
Yeah, I agree. And I wonder if the stock in Yem is increasing now. It's like it's always been widely considered like the best Phish song or one of the top 5, obviously. But I feel like now that it's Yem traditional that we know and love plus a jam vehicle, right? Like that kind of takes the steam out of like the tweezers and the Down with Diseases and things, right? Like now that Yem, it's almost like the perfect Phish song.
But Yem was always 16 minutes, so you're getting another 4 or 5 minutes.
Yeah, maybe one day it could become like
a little bit.
All right,
just a little. Maybe we could get a 10-minute, or we could end up in tube.
Yem was also always, kind of like what you're saying, Tim, is that Yem was always the showcase Phish tune, right? It was like, especially I remember in 1.0, it was the tune that I would use it was the tune that hooked me, and when I was in a dorm room smoking out of a bong, and I heard it, and I like suddenly I was like, wait, what are we listening to? what is this? Immediately borrowed the CD,
Was it a Toastmaster or a graphics?
It was a graphics, 100%. But yeah, yeah. And in the room of a Primus fan, I remember he was a real big Primus fan and played me Junta, and so I just I think
you
that
said I'm all in.
Yeah, all in. It was the composition. It was Yem is such a compositional tune though, right? Like it's not meant necessarily to always be type 2, although there have been, but for the most part, it's kind of their showcase. It's like, here's what we can do. We can do this, we can do this, we can do this, and we can do this. Right to the funk jam at the end. It's like we can do it all. Classical leaning, rock leaning,
Trey's like, this is everything climax. I know. Right. Yeah, check me out. This is everything I know. I can do a fugue. I can
jump on a trampoline. I can speak Italian.
It's the mosaic. Yeah, I can speak Italian. We can do boy, man, god, shit. That's very Fishy right there. The vocal jam is something uniquely Phish. So I mean, I feel like it was like characteristic Phish. It was like, here's the little show. Here's their showpiece. It's absolutely a masterpiece. It's like, it was the one thing that, like, I remember, much to my friends, like, frustration sometimes, I would play them Yems and lock them in my car in college. Like we would go to, ostensibly just to smoke a joint or something, and I'd be like, no, you're not leaving. No, not until
you gotta finish the song, right?
And it worked. It hooked everybody, But now I feel like Phish is so much, they've added entire dimensions, and I feel like it's still their showcase tune in many ways. But I also don't know. I mean, I think I probably, the thing is that Yem works as a way of showcasing Phish because of how genius it is, in the compositional part, right? The composed part, but I think I probably these days would play Tweezer for somebody, because it's the opposite. It's like, it's pure type 2 madness.
That one from Sunday night, I would play him that ended up in Wingsuit. That's another show.
So if they can stretch out and really, go far with the tag jam, whatever we're calling that, the rebound, the reprise, if they could really get deep and spacey and weird or funk, you know what I mean? Like, do interesting things with that, then it now has the Tweezer-esque thing to it. Right. I don't know if they've gotten there yet. Like, they've been cool jams out of them, but I don't think that they've been like, none of the nights were like, oh, that was the mind-blowing jam.
I think the best one was the Deer Creek into the Wave of Hope, because I don't think they planned on doing Wave of Hope necessarily. They kind of stumbled into, hey, we're playing
that was a great Wave of Hope too.
Yes, that was fantastic. But we got a standard tube instead of a Great Wave of Hope tonight.
Which is cool, though.
A standard tube is better than no tube at all, I guess.
Yeah.
And then we got Shade. I mean, what can we say? Tube is, and we got Shade. And then we got Reba.
It's one of those things where, like, that first set, it was a great first set. So I mean, my opinion is 2 thumbs way up. That being said, it was the type of first set where I feel like if it was one of your first shows, you would be blown away start to finish, and then the jaded vets like us, like it was still a great set, but we can say, oh yeah, then they did Tube, then they did Shade, oh, and there's a Reba,
but they did whistle for Reba.
Yeah, they whistled for Reba, and none of it, there's no, I've got no complaints about any of it. It was all, it was
well executed.
Yeah.
And a little Cavern, the little icing on the cake there. Here's a little taste. We'll see you in 20, 30, whatever it takes.
It was very dialed in Phish, like they weren't leaping off cliffs, but at the same time they weren't, they weren't sleepwalking. It was dialed in, and it was perfect. It was
it wasn't too safe, but it was it wasn't too adventurous either. It was
good song selection all around.
Yeah, it was a great set. I loved
really
it.
Fun Tuesday evening.
Yeah. So you had something you wanted to tell us about, Tim.
Oh, we're at Set Break, are we?
We are at Set Break.
So I just wanted to let everybody know, if you notice on your chat, there's a new way to support us, and there's going to be new features coming out. What we're trying to do is offset some of the cost of production for the fall and spring lineups. We have some really great shows, but up to this point, we've kind of been doing it out of pocket, and we had some big ideas we want to do. So if you are inclined, you could check those out or check out our merch store. Also, like and subscribe the video. That's a huge help to us. That was pretty good off the cuff read,
It
right?
was fantastic.
Yeah, and
And
follow us on socials.
if you wrote shit down, you could be a professional.
I could, but I haven't.
I like it when it comes from the heart.
Yeah.
Yes. Well, when we
Yes,
get
it
that
does.
first dollar, I'll officially become a professional, and I'll write
There
shit
you go.
down.
There you
Wait,
go.
when I have to pay taxes, I'm a professional. Then we went to set 2 and we got a fantastic free. It's the first time it's opened at a second set since I looked this up. 10/25/14 at the Sleep Train Amphitheater.
What year?
So 14.
Okay.
And through 3.0, it was 70% first set freeze, 30% second set. And I think it's been that in 4.0 too. A lot of them have
definitely
like
a
closed
first
the
set.
first set.
Yeah, it's definitely a first set song, I think. But I love it in this spot, especially when they take it out like the way they
24 minutes, yeah.
Yeah. I just saw that timing on it. 24 minutes. I it's what's the expression, like a white, the not the white elephant. Is it a white elephant where like you're or a white dolphin?
Pink elephants. They're pink elephants.
No, not
Isn't that
the
what
pink
Timothy
elephant.
Leary?
The white whale. The white whale.
White
whale, yeah.
Yeah, and so like Haley's Comet is always a white whale to me, right? Like every single time they do it, it has the potential to be type 2, and you know that when it is, it's gonna be awesome. But you also know 9 times out of 10 it's not. And
Right.
I remember the age, when Free had that potential and it was more often fulfilled. And so like the Landover, Maryland Free is like the shining example where it totally broke down
33
Free.
minutes.
And yeah, exactly. But every single time that they play Free, I have that hope in my heart. And I wanted to be a second set song, even though oftentimes they don't play it as such. But I wanted to be it, like, and fulfill that function of a second set song. And every time when Trey goes and hits that note that brings the whole jam back around, in it, every single time I want to give him the finger, just because not seriously, but just because it means the jam's done, and it means that they usually take it out 1 to 2 minutes, and Free will average about 8 to 9 minutes.
Yep.
And when it goes over 8 minutes, it's usually pretty exciting. Even if it's just like a Nets or 1 or 2 minutes of funk in there. But for it to go out tonight past the 20-minute marks, that's something that that every single time they play it, I want. And so for them to deliver it tonight, and I thought it was such a perfect Free jam. Like it was great.
Lots of great spaces in there. Yeah,
lots of great spaces. The end kind of it was like free falling, and then Free was free falling for 20 some minutes, and then at the end it kind of just dissipated, and that was also cool. That was a very fishy way of ending it.
Yeah, I agree. It was a very cool version of it. I know that I can tell anecdotally it doesn't happen a lot because the phrase "is it still free?" or "are we?" You know what I mean? Are we still free? It's such a funny thing, and I don't recall hearing that often. Meaning we don't get lost in Free, right? Like truly stretching it out type 2. And I think part of the reason is because Free is a really great type 1 jam vehicle. There's a lot of good with that
big arena rock song,
right? Like it's that pulse and the groove with the whole rhythm section lined up. It can set up a really fantastic guitar solo-esque type 1 traditional rock jam, which you need in a show. So I don't mind sacrificing that. It's not always going to be the really spacey type 2 jam, because I like getting one or two of those as show, right? Like the rock and roll jam.
Yeah, I mean, I love Character Zero, in that function.
Right, exactly. It's a perfect
Santos
example.
too.
But
Santos
it is cool when they
that.
take those rock and roll ones and then turn them into what we saw tonight.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, which Free makes me want to stomp my feet, like in that riff that you just did, like that makes me want to like stomp and
yeah.
But even when they type 2, you can do that, like when they type to it, they often stay in that general space. Although tonight, of course, they went full cosmos.
Exactly. And then some beautiful spaces, like I said, that ended up in Esther, and I'll let you guys run with Esther.
I like Esther, and I think that was acceptable. I don't want to say acceptable. That sounds like douchey, like, oh, it's acceptable. But I mean, it was a good, Esther? I don't know.
Competent. It was competent. It was
It
standard.
was adequate. It was
Hey,
adequate.
where's my?
I mean, it's one of those songs you
It's
get what you
competent.
get, and they either nail it and play it well, or they don't.
something
There's
you
not much
never-
in between.
Something you never want to be told as a lover. It was adequate, you know, but it totally was in that. Here's the thing: is that, you know, Tim, you said about Free being your first set song. With Free, like it can be in either set, and I'm cool with it, and it doesn't feel weird to me because I've seen it in the second set a lot, you know, as well as the first. Esther, to me, when it is in the first set and when it's well placed, I love it, right? Because it's a great song. We forget all about it. It's really hard for them to execute, and when they play it, they usually have rehearsed it because they use just like foam. Like it's usually a well presented, and it's a great composition. It's a great Phish tune. You know, it's part of the canon. So I love
weird
it.
as shit.
Yeah. I love it in that, you know, it was like prototype Phish for a while too. It's Junta material. You know, I love it in that first set as that function. In the second set, when you get, you know, I very rarely say during the second set, why'd they do this? It's a first set tune. Because you know what? If I don't love it, who cares? 5 minutes later, 8 minutes later, it's
gone.
But then there's some tunes like Time Turns Elastic or Petrichor that take up a lot of real estate. And even if you like it, you know that it's going to take up a lot of real estate. So therefore, it's going to shape the set, you know, the flow of the set. And Esther is one of those songs where I love it, takes up a lot of real estate, you know, and can really affect the flow of a set, you know, for better or for worse. When it's well placed, it works perfectly.
And here it came to an end.
Yeah.
And they just boom, that was the end, and went into the, you know, another workhorse blazing one.
Yep, that's right. And I don't what I was saying, I don't think it killed the set at all by any means. I thought it was very interestingly placed, and I was curious to see if it was going to be like a stumble afterwards. But I don't think it was a stumble. I think going into Blaze On was great.
I think that Esther was important too to create a punctuation after the free jam, because the free jam in and of itself was so good. Kev's like, you're going the wrong way. I'm trying to move forward, and you're going
I'm
backwards.
with you. I'm
but like so many jams this tour have been about the segue, right? And like it's always like jam asterisk, like, oh, that jam's good, but it was like this. And I don't know. I think about what that free jam. I'm like, it's kind of cool that it's like punctuated just on its little island there, and it gives everybody a chance to like chill out with something familiar and weird and like canon. And then Blaze On, it's like, okay, now we're back to going somewhere. Although they were the same length. Talk about real estate. The Esther was the same length of time as the Blaze On, even though
interesting.
It's the summer of the micro jam.
Yeah, but going backwards just for a second.
Yes.
I think that after that free jam, you know, and being caught up in it, I didn't, you know, I wasn't timer, so I wasn't sure, you know, how long it was. I knew it was long, but I'm almost, you know, it's like if it's gonna be Esther or else a cool down song, you know. And the thing is that, you know, I love the Phish ballads. You know, I know that not everyone does. I love them. You know, especially when they're placed after a tweezer, after a monster jam.
Yeah,
it's great. It's needed. It's great. It helps with the flow. Like it's perfect. You know, and Phish writes really great ones. But if it's that or Esther, you know, it's cool because it's like they totally could have done a Waiting in the Velvet Sea right there.
Yeah, but they did Shade in the first set, and the general rule of thumb should be Shade is like 4 ballads. If you're gonna throw that in your set list, you better not throw another fucking ballad in your set list.
Okay.
Because I only like the Shade when it's blocking the other ballads.
What if it's like Dogface Boy? Something like that, right?
Or a Billy Breeze.
I love Billy Breeze.
Yeah, it's
I'd take that any show.
They haven't done it yet this tour.
Life Boy, I could take any show if I could.
If I got my first If I Could at Merriweather.
That was good. Yeah. It was a good
125 shows, and I finally nailed one.
Also a weird placement, but it was great. You know,
yeah,
it's always
I think since the one they did in Arkansas, and they did one other at the beginning of spring tour that I think were really early in the set too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's that's its new home.
Well, also at Merriweather, I wasn't there, but I understand it was really hot, and so sometimes it's like Trey, all of Phish, but one of the things that they really excel at is knowing how to tailor the set list to the moment, even if that moment means it's sweltering hot, or if they need everyone to calm down a little bit, whatever it is, they know how. They kind of
hydrate. Everybody go hydrate.
Yeah, crowd control. They have it. There's a
Pull
devil
the
in the
puppet
crowd.
strings.
All right, so then we got into Sense, which is another big piece of meat from the set there.
But in a great way. I mean, like I thought
I'm saying there was a lot. Once you got past the composed part, there was a nice outro jam to it.
Yeah, it was awesome. I think it was one of the more beautiful parts of the set or of the show.
Yeah, I loved it. I thought it was that was well placed, and it was well played.
Yeah, I think it foreshadowed, or a song we're going to talk about to close the set kind of mirrored it, I think, in points. Like I've talked about before, how they'll bring back the theme from
You
a
can
jam
just
in
say
another
it's.
song.
I mean, we all saw the show.
Right, I know. Well, I was just building up.
You don't want to give away the final chapter?
Well, I'll say it like you said it earlier. We got a nice little 2001 bridge, and then we ended up in Melt. And I feel like the Melt and the Sense mirrored each other a little bit.
Yeah, or at least gave equally enjoyable, what do you call it? Like ends. Like I don't know if they were direct mirrors of each other, but they both had their own substance, and like I don't know. It was, but ironically, 2001 didn't. I feel like it was more. It felt like a bridge between these two moments of the second set. Where normally I'm one of the people that when there's 2001, that is one of the moments of the set. But in this case, it almost just felt like this pathway between those two moments, I guess.
I think that's a good way of putting it. It did feel like a bridge, and it felt like a placeholder. It was like, oh, okay, we need a tune here, like, you know, but a quick tune. And then when the end of Split Open My Mouth, I see what you mean about the mirror, and that both free, like it was free, like you said earlier, it was free falling, you know, into this like fizzle at the end. And I don't mean that in a condescending way at all, despite
no.
Fizzle. You know,
that's what I want. I want that chaos.
Yeah, the very Residence, you know, like ish, Halloweenish, you know, just like and almost into like this ambient dissonant space, right? And it's a hallmark of Phish summer tours. Not every summer, but like every periodically in the summer, they start focusing on these ambient jams. I remember summer 1995 is a really good example because everyone forgets about it. But if you go back and listen, it'll be in the middle of a tweezer and they'll hit that ambient space, you know. And I feel like, you know, a part of it has to do with being outside, and it plays to the environment, it plays to the heat, plays to just the way the sheds are in the summer, and I feel like the difference now versus say that 1995 ambient space is that's what I meant the first time, by the way, not I confused the whole decade, 1995. But I think the difference now is that they have all these toys and they have all these cool effect sounding things that they're still, 4.0 stuff that they're still experimenting with. And I think that leads to some really cool, very psychedelic spaces.
And Melt is consistent. Is like they tend to do that a lot in Melt, and it's probably one of the most consistent songs in all of 4.0. Every time they get out there, you pay for your ticket, you get a Melt, you know that you're going to get really good, dark, psychedelic. You make me think too much if I got too many party favors kind of music.
Yeah, no. Well, it makes me go, I'm so glad I took that acid.
Is it Melt or the acid?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, exactly right.
It's it got so weird too. Like I feel like the ambient jam in this segment was one beautiful part, but then the weirdness into the conclusion of Melt, where it got really bleepy and bloopy, or some people call it like arcadey, you know, that type of thing. That then you start getting that rhythm, and it's the most incredible way to come out of the jam with the bam bam, you know. Yeah, the syncopated, and then eventually
there's three notes. I love it.
Right, and bam, bam, Yeah, and
It
then
brings it all home.
right, and it gets more and more in step with each other, more and more locked in, more and more prominent, and from the ambient to the weird to the bloopity bleepity arcadey into that conclusion, I think is a perfect way to end a perfect set. I don't know if that last sentence made any sense, but it made sense
It
to me.
got there.
It made sense to me, 100%. Yeah, and I
got there.
agree. I mean, I loved it. Almost felt like, even though this isn't absolutely accurate, it almost felt like a fake out at the end of Split Open. You know, like it felt like they, you know, for a second didn't know maybe they weren't going to end it, and maybe
Yeah.
they were just going to end it with this big, like, you know, triumphant, you know, cliche rock ending. You know, and then all of a sudden, right back into it, which is like so hallmark of that song. Like that's what the ending's supposed to do. It brings, it's like you question reality and everything, and then all of a sudden you hear those three notes and everything.
Right. It takes you so far out there, and then they just land you. They gently land you back.
Right.
And then they say good night, and they, you know, they left, came back. I was like, Drift While You're Sleeping. It's got to be coming. They haven't played it since The Man, but they said, yeah, fuck you, Kevin. We're doing Gin. So, I mean, how can you argue with the Gin encore? So
I too was thinking it was going to be Drift or Life Beyond the Dream, both of which I'm a fan of. This and Life Beyond a Dream, especially. Like I know that it's played a lot in that encore slot, and I know that there's mixed feelings on it, but I'm just I'm a huge fan of that song, and in that slot, in the encore slot.
Right.
You know, or yeah, mostly in the encore slot. I was gonna say, or a set closer as well if it's the second set, maybe. But yeah, but you know, and as an encore, I love it so much. But Bathtub Gin, I almost don't like as an encore because you know that
it's got to end.
you know that they're looking at the clock.
10 minutes, right? We got to be out of here at 10.
Exactly. You know, there's a deadline on it. And Bathtub Gin is best when there's no restrictions.
I feel like they had a longer encore tonight, though. Like they knew that they ended the second set early, maybe.
And they had 15 minutes.
Probably because of the setup with the melt, right? Like they weren't going to do something after the melt, so then they had a little bit of a longer encore. And I wonder if, I don't know, it's like a speculation thing, but I wonder how much that goes into the decision of what to play. Because when we were talking to Matt Bush the other day, right on the show, we were talking about
he came on live,
yeah,
it was like a few weeks ago, but he was talking about.
Did he come on after a show?
He came on before the last two shows of the tour, the Wednesday before the last two shows.
Oh, of City Field for Dead and Company.
Yeah, for Dead and Company. Yeah.
So, you know, he and I talked about. You know, he's a friend of mine, and obviously I was out with him this summer, and I told him he should be doing more stuff like this.
Right? How can I? You go ahead and do what you're doing, Tim, and then I want to ask about Bill, how he's doing.
Oh, ask about Bill. I don't know what I was even talking about.
How is Bill doing? Is he okay? Is he feeling better?
Bill's doing great.
Cool.
It was really important, I think, this summer for us to show how, like, there's three things at play, right? There's when you're that old, right? When you know you're 76 years old, you just have things come up. You know what I mean? Like he's overalls in good health, but there's a difference between being in good health and being able to play like a motherfucker for 3.5 hours. You know,
every night, right? Or 3 or 4 times a week, right?
Yeah, it's way different than playing guitar or bass or keyboards. You know, it's physical. He runs a 16-mile marathon with his arms every night that he does it, according to his watch. You know, and if you've ever watched him play, like I have the vantage point of being behind him, so I see him play, and he is physical as he plays. He says the one thing he says about Fishman's drumming is that it's very light, which I find funny because I don't think Fishman's drumming's light at all. But like Billy's a very, like, you know, he likes to pound the shit out of
old school rock and roll drummer.
Old school rock and roll, yeah, exactly. Right. And he does the shuffle that betrays it because it doesn't sound. It's not like that driving rock beat that you know.
It isn't the John Bonham thing or something.
Yeah, exactly. Instead, it has the shuffle, so it doesn't. But when you watch him play, he's very physical with it, and that takes being in not just, you know, health, but also great shape. He worked out with a trainer every day. leading up to this tour, and he was in great shape going into it. Had a back injury, and that prevented him from playing, and then got COVID, and we were grounded when he got
I get
COVID.
back injuries getting up from the couch, so I can
Well, I mean,
appreciate that.
it was as simple as that. It started in Boulder, and we could see it. He said he was in some pain, and he said something like, "It's always something, darn it," and but he downplayed it, and then we could see as he was playing, he was in pain, and he's also the generation where he's never going to admit that. He's never. And he always going to show up. He was in a lot of pain, and it grew and grew. So we were like, let's take care of this. He had to get a.
And you had Jay on speed dial?
Yeah, Jay on speed dial. And I mean, I've traveled all around the country with Jay separately as part of, with Electric Beethoven. And Jay's, he knows all the material. He's played with Bobby for
fantastic drummer.
Years. Yeah, a fantastic drummer. And a spirit animal with Billy, in my opinion, just because both of them just have this like, kind of like Animal from the Muppet, attitude to them, or both party animals,
right.
And with no sense of slowing down. So I've seen both of them do things where I'm just like, how are they still standing? Right,
I barely make it through a 3-hour show standing on the lawn. So
yeah,
Bill had to be bummed though that he missed those shows. Like just like I don't know him well, but it just can only imagine. Is he like in good spirits now? I feel like missing the shows and that time off would be hard on him.
Missing the shows was very hard on him. It was hard to know that the band that you're a part of is playing a show while you're in a hotel room.
Right. I like the split. The couple he split sets. That was cool because at least he got out there and got to do some of it,
That's right. And also some of it was, most of the calls were down to the minute, and that we would early on see how he was feeling, and he'd be like, I'm gonna do let me do drums tonight, and then I'll stay for the next 2 songs. And then there he like after drums he was one point was like, no, I have to stop, or I'll go out for the encore, I'll play the entire first set and see how I feel. So it was, and luckily Jay was at the ready,
which is great to have.
Which is great to have, but it also, I mean, like it was tough for Billy, I think, to watch. He didn't,
to send in a replacement, to send somebody else on the battlefield, so to speak.
Send someone on the battlefield. I think it does something to like you think about it, because it's like, oh, like, am I too old to be playing? Like all these things, and the answer, of course, his spirits would keep coming back around to the fact that no, like he not only is he in great shape, but drumming is the most important thing to him. Well, drumming and his wife, like he loves his life, he loves his wife, and he loves his drums, and he's got to be playing music to be happy, and that's what it comes down to. And he's got more years in him yet.
Oh my God, watching that Billy Strings thing last year from his house. I mean, watching that, I'm like, this guy's got, quite a few years left in the tank there.
And when you watch that too, you get a sense where you understand that the tempos and Dead and Company are not Billy setting it, because you see him with the Billy and the Kids, and you see the faster tempos, and that's his band where he gets to call those shots.
Yeah.
And where he's doing,
So right, I guess we're saying it's Bobby, right? Is that reading between the lines?
Ask Matt Bush.
Next time
I think he talked about that. He talked about Bobby rearranging the songs and seeing Dead and Company as a chance to try to be more expressive in his, vocal delivery. Like Jack Straw, definitely. And it drives me crazy with Jack Straw, because I want that song Cocaine Fast from the early 80s,
Yeah, but I mean, I think Bobby feels like and he's not wrong. He feels like he's a storyteller. He feels like these songs, they're stories. And that was the genius of Robert Hunter. He told these amazing stories in song form, and Bobby feels. I almost wondered, not to get into dangerous territory, but I almost wondered when Phish slows things down by just a hair, which they've done this summer, and to me, it almost sounds like. They're slowly.
You see the future.
Is that because of Trey's vocals as much as the physicality of it? Because
I tell you, that the llama they did the other night at Merriweather was 1.5 times. It was super fast. Yeah.
And the maze, there was a couple mazes this tour that were blazing. I think they slowed a lot down. You're right, Benji, but it was almost to find a chiller groove with it.
That's
because
right.
I think it's still rip. I mean, I know that's the thing people have been saying, but I think both
Billy,
Phish and Billy,
All
Bill
right.
and Phish could both still rip. I guess is the
Yeah.
point.
Yeah.
He needs to come back and jump in again like he did at Red Rocks that one year.
Yeah. Absolutely. I think
You know,
so
they'll
too.
be at Dick's later in the summer.
Yeah. The Fishman and Billy had a fun little morning together that I got to be a part of, and at the end it was also kind of endearing. At the end, they knew each other from before, obviously, but not really well, and they wanted to trade numbers at the end. And had to have me, help Billy. How do you program this in your phone? And I said, okay, he'll be on your phone as Henrietta. And Billy said, what? And Fishman's like, oh, one of my many names, and explained it. But yeah.
Fish is gonna be all
nice.
pissed. Like, why isn't Billy called me? And it's because he doesn't remember that it's Henrietta.
Like, who's Henrietta?
Like,
Oh,
he probably knows a few Henriettas. Honestly, I mean.
Are you saying it's an old name?
that was the humor in that joke. Thanks for bringing special attention to it. I'm actually super excited that we get you one more time tomorrow night, because we're probably going to spend half of the episode talking about stories. And
thank you so much for the updates. I appreciate having the inside view there and knowing my man's okay.
Yeah, he's more than okay. He's great. In fact, I talked to him. Was it today? No, it was yesterday. I talked to him, and he just got back from a vacation in Canada, and he has a house on an island in the what is it, the British Columbia, like the Vancouver Islands. He's got a house out there right near Paul Stamets, and he bought it right before the pandemic and wasn't able to go there at all after he bought it, so he just went there for a week. And you can ask me how he's doing, but one picture that his wife sent me said it all. He was riding a bicycle, through the woods up in on the island.
Nice.
And it's like, if you're riding a bicycle, you feel fine.
I can't ride a bicycle. So.
Yeah. Yeah, but riding on mountain trails,
Yeah. I mean, I need a trike, if anything.
I mean, it might have been an e-bike, but still.
Oh my! All right, well, we will see you tomorrow night, and thank you everybody for tuning in. Remember, Helping Friendly Pod, 1:00 tomorrow. Justin Green, David Miller. We love you all. Like, subscribe.
Thanks, Benji. Good to see you tomorrow. That was fun.